Hey everyone, if you're cruising in the Atlantic or Caribbean between June and November, you may be impacted by a hurricane. For the safety of the passengers, the crew, and the vessel, cruise lines do make changes, if needed, to the ports of call, the home port, even the day when your cruise starts and ends. All these were on the table, and some of them actually happened to me during Hurricane Milton. I'm Pat from 5-Minute Cruise Tips, and I'll tell you about my hurricane cruise and how Royal Caribbean handled it. I'll keep this short, punchy, packed full of information, and as always, under 5 minutes. As a baseline, this was a 5-night, 6-day cruise out of Tampa with 2 stops in Mexico, Cozumel and Costa Maya, and 2 sea days on Grandeur of the Seas. I've done all these before, Tampa, the ports, Grandeur, so I had a good idea of what the cruise should be like. Leading up to the cruise, it was no secret that Hurricane Milton was headed straight for Tampa and could impact the sailing. I figured best case we leave Tampa before the storm, get out to sea to our 2 ports, hope and pray for people in Florida, and get back to Tampa on time after the storm. Turns out there were multiple changes. Change number 1. The night before the cruise, Royal emailed me that both ports in Mexico were canceled. It's now 1 stop in Nassau. Ugh. Nassau is nice, but I've been there so many times. At embarkation, the check-in agents made sure I knew about the port changes. They also offered a full refund if I wanted to cancel. That would have been tempting if I knew before I flew down, but I was already there. Day 3 into the cruise, Royal was making plans in case we couldn't get back to Tampa. Backup options were Port Everglades and Port Canaveral, and they surveyed us to see if we'd use a shuttle back to Tampa. They also asked how many extra days of prescription meds we had. That was a hint that our cruise might be extended. Change number 2, our port day in Nassau was canceled at the last minute because it was too windy to dock, but they'd try again the next day, which was good news. Then I realized if we're in Nassau on day 5, there's no way we're back in Tampa on day 6. It's too far. They'd have to extend the cruise by a day or take us back to Port Everglades. We were able to dock in Nassau on day 5, and that night we got change number 3. It was official that our return to Tampa was delayed by 1 day and we'd arrive at 7 a.m. I quickly changed my flight and was glad to have a decision. The next day, change number 4. Our return to Tampa is delayed even more. Instead of 7 a.m., we get back at 12 noon. I scrambled again to change to a later flight. Change number 4.5, 5. We actually get back in Tampa a little bit early, 10 a.m. instead of the revised time of noon. It was nice to get off the ship early, but I scrambled and changed my flight a 3rd time to get home sooner. So those were the 4, maybe 5 changes that happened because of the hurricane. How did Royal do? Mostly pluses, some minuses. I'm glad they made sure everyone knew about the port changes, but I wish they told us sooner about the option to cancel. On the ship, the communication was very coordinated. The announcements from the captain and the letters in the cabin were in lockstep. For disembarkation, they knew a lot of people would do self-assist with their luggage, so they made more groups and had a ticketing system for crowd control. I wish Royal was more transparent about the decision to go to Nassau instead of Mexico or elsewhere. My theory is we went east to get to calm waters, and it paid off. Despite the winds, the ship was not very rocky, so kudos to Royal. If that was their plan, they could have told us and gotten credit for it. As for compensation, there wasn't much, but it was fair. We got some free internet to change our flights, some money for airline change fees, and Royal paid the extra port fees in Nassau. I paid the extra day of standard gratuities, which was fair for the crew. For people with the deluxe drink package, they did not get the extra day for free, but they could pay $35 including tip, which is really cheap. Well, I made it through my hurricane cruise, so now I have some advice for you. But first, I'll take a moment to invite you to subscribe. If you want to see more 5-minute videos about planning and making the most of your cruise, please subscribe and turn on the notification bell. Okay, advice number 1. Pack your patience, be ready to change your plans, and stay positive. Number 2, seek official sources of info, not the rumor mill. Somebody told us the Port of Tampa was really damaged, but I went to the port's website and it just wasn't true. Number 3, know your ship. I went on this cruise knowing this was a small ship without bells and whistles. I saw a lot of kids and wondered if they got bored after all those sea days. Number 4, if you're going to buy trip insurance, you usually have to do it before a storm is named to have it covered. So, would I cruise again during a hurricane? Maybe, but every situation is different. Despite the uncertainty at times, I still had fun, made the most of it, and I liked how the ship was only 80% full. Thank you for watching these 5-minute cruise tips. If you found this video helpful, please give it a thumbs up. I'll see you next time.